we thought that this was really for us a national service.
Marina Bay Sands team came down. You are constructing a building.
Everyone who wants to party in the city. I think a festival is really the kind of right venue for that.
Yeah. I love this conclusion. Maybe now it's time to do my intro. Okay, smile at the camera. Hi everyone, and thank you for joining ArchitectuREAL, a special edition marking 20 years of Archifest. My name is Razvan Gilikmiku. I'll be your host, and I'm delighted to welcome Patrick Lee, Jan Folane, Richard Ho, and H. Kun Wee, past festival directors. One question that I ask everyone, and I would love to get your view, and please do remember the thrill. What does it feel like to get handed the keys to Archifest? When you get the first call and you have to start kind of taking the keys from the previous director and put your hands on the wheel. So maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah. Okay, to be honest, I'm kind of blur, not knowing what it is about. But I just joined the council then, and then was given this assignment. And I just went into it with actually quite a lot of support, and feel very honored because looking at the past years, that was in 2013, there's been much success, and Archifest has become actually almost a national annual event that people look out for. It's kind of difficult to miss, especially the conference or the Archi tours. But I thought that was really an honor. I felt, of course, excited, but really kind of blur, and I learned along.
Which is probably a good place to be, because if you're a little bit naive about what's waiting for you, you might have made a different decision, whereas you said, bring it on.
Yeah, probably that is true. And sometimes a white piece of blank paper might be a better way to do something not done before.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was thankful for that.
Initially, Archifest started when I was in council. I was in council for about 8 years. And then we always get the VP who is in charge of design. Everything got to the design competition,
Right.
Singapore Architect, whatever, to be the Archifest director. So I was first VP under Zebun. After Zebun was Chi Huang, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yes,
Yeah.
because Ashlyn was
right.
before.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
Ash,
correct, that's correct.
Boone, and then Jim.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was VP for 2 years. So those 2 years I kena arrow lah.
Yeah.
because what happened is that when it started, I was in the council those days, but I wasn't VP yet. And then what happened was, the idea is we need to disseminate to the public and share with them the education of what good design entails. Because at that time the public is very illiterate, so to speak, on design. So that was the main objective, and to share with the public what an architect does. Because a lot of time people ask, what do you all do?
Yeah.
You all draw or not?
Right. Yeah.
Do you do interior design? Is interior architecture? Architecture doesn't include interior design. All that
Right.
thing. So, that's how it started. And then later on, it has always lost money. Always.
Archifest.
Yes.
Yes, correct.
It's SIA outreach, but
Right.
SIA knew that unless you can get good sponsorship, every year lose money.
Yeah.
The only project during Archifest that makes money, which I'm very proud to say, since I'm the staff advisor,
Okay.
is the Archi tours run by
TS.
TS.
Yeah.
TS. The only project that actually makes money. The rest is all money flow out, nothing
Right.
come in. And of course, those days we have the pavilion, which make things even more difficult, and we always have to beg somebody to sponsor the pavilion,
Right.
which is not cheap.
It is not.
SIA budget was 70K or 75K. I mean, come on,
it's
what can you
ridiculous.
do with 75K? Even those years,
The earlier years was 100K.
Oh.
Yeah, and I'm going to share something right there about
Yeah.
the pavilion. Actually, it was a pavilion.
Yeah.
Jumps ahead of myself. Okay, I was in charge of Archifest 2013 and 14.
Just before me, yeah.
So 13 was relatively small, but that was the first time we did no, the second time we did the pavilion. The first one was in Fort Canning, if you remember.
Yeah.
The one that's by Elmick, they use
The zero waste one designed by Wow Architects.
The drain cells and this by Wall. James was in. But then I was in charge of the second one and the third one. And the third one was significant because that year, the design panel decided to award to 2 winners.
Oh, that's the chairs one on Marina Bay.
Yeah. Fung Ho Chong and Xinya.
Xinya.
And they have their partners also. So it then began the conversation of how much do you award, because we only have 100K.
Oh, yours increased 100.
Not increased.
75.
It was reduced.
Well, let me tell you, it
Ours
decreased
reduced,
over time, but we'll keep the numbers out.
But what happened is that I cut the story short. After a long debate, we decided that, hey, look here, we are trying to tell the message to the entire industry what the value of design is and architecture. It's so undervalued. Everybody was looking at numbers and is it efficient and stuff. So Theodore was the president that time. So we decided we award to 100K each. Yeah, and that was really minus. Really,
you were VP right that time?
Not VP yet.
Oh, okay,
I just joined the council second year, and of course
Okay.
but that messaging is strong. I thought that was good. Not that we want to do it over and over again, but I think that is so important. During that year, it actually created a lot of impact.
Yeah, it makes a statement, and it's interesting that one topic that came out in every single conversation across this broader podcast is the topic of a visible project. I mean, Mangkok framed it as a project, asked, do we need to make sure that there is a pavilion associated with Archifest? And he reframed it really skillfully around, well, perhaps it doesn't need to be a pavilion, because obviously there were exhibitions. In 2022, there were no fewer than 7 pavilions at the URA, but there was something tangible that people contributed with to Archifest, that people remember somehow physically, visually, they get to be there. So what's your take on that, Archifest having something, a physical footprint that is more than just a series of events that happen? Maybe I'll start with you, because you probably have the last big pavilion.
We had a really big pavilion. I think it's the last, and it was in an extremely prime location, right in the middle of Marina Bay Sands. And I remember when we were constructing it, Marina Bay Sands team came down crazy. They were like, "What are you doing? You are we accepted a temporary pavilion, and you are constructing a building."
Were you drilling piles?
And we were having concrete. We were having all the rebar and so and Shiwon was like, "It's okay.
Don't get him in trouble now." They thought it's plastic chairs, but it wasn't.
And it was massive things, and indeed it was a point of attraction, highly visible from all around Marina Bay. So again, prime location, directly connected also to the SIA conference room. There were Expo that was happening there as well. So it was a great location, and it was a magnet, and that's why we had so many people coming in. So I do believe that yes, a pavilion is very important to be something physical that people can see and can go to. After our year, there were a big debate whether it should go in URA or not, and eventually it went inside URA. But there were a lot of discussions about but if it goes to URA, then is SIS still independent? And portraying what it should be, which is this independent group, and that is not directly, although connected to URA, definitely, and that there is this strong link with URA, but it was okay, do we go there or not, and will we still be visible from everyone? So then they went to URA, and it was equally successful. So
that would have been Alan's craft exhibition, which was the whole URA atrium.
Yeah, but the whole process of doing the competition for the pavilion was exciting. I remember staying here and to look into the different proposal, and it was the previous years were bigger firms who won that or more established firm, Kite Studio was a smaller firm, and it was just a fantastic news for him and the team. And it was all of the jury members, we all wanted that design because it
Right.
was so much in line with the theme of Design for Life and something that is very simple in essence in utilizing like simple materials. But we knew it would be challenging. We knew it would be expensive. And so fortunately we had like amazing sponsor that could cover all of the expenses and that could make that vision becoming true.
Possible,
Yeah. Possible.
How about you, Patrick? Your thoughts on, because you obviously commissioned and have done pavilions and...
Yeah, I think I must start off to give credit to the partners that came along in those two festivals. One is Shophouse & Co, right, Adib, and the other one is Plus. So they did a very, very good job. The team was co-developed as well. The first one is Small is Beautiful, focusing on, actually has a little bit of that nationalistic stunt to it, because small, right? Singapore being small, and how we impact. So we actually focus on details, and what our little effort, especially design and the field that we are in, influence the environment that we set up. That was Small is Beautiful, and we went into looking at the mundane, how can that contribute all together. But then the following year, it is a coincidence actually, not to go do a contrast. But then the theme was crowd. Talking about crowdfunding, crowdsourcing, and what is this thing called crowd? The notion of crowd, and with that there are two sub teams to it: the collective intelligence in crowd, and also the community capital. How do we tap on this to energize and contribute to the city? I think from that aspect, interestingly, these 2 years it seems to be like a contrasting points, but they are actually just coincidental. And it touched really on scales as well, small, really midget, small little things, but nonetheless very important to the larger picture. And in the second one, we look at actually the people, the community, and how that quote unquote, whether is it hosted by architecture and the environment or the other way around. So I thought that was interesting. And,
Absolutely, and that's something that we identify, that sometimes Archifests are not necessarily a linear progression. It's almost like action and reaction, a really nice pendulum swing between editions that are very, or seem to be very focused on the production of architecture and seem to be more appealing to, I guess, an audience of designers around pure disciplinary topics, and editions that are very openly putting architecture out there in a really democratic fashion and inviting the city to be a part of them. But before we move on to other questions, I was curious to get your view on the physical kind of artifact, the pavilion, the exhibition. Is that something that you miss, something that you think should continue into the next 20 editions? Where do you stand on that?
The first festival I was in charge of was 2015. That's also coincided with Singapore's 50th birthday. And also earlier in that year, our great leader, Lee Kuan Yew, passed away. So the theme was What Future? And also we had an election that year, a few months after his passing away. And more opposition candidates were voted into parliament. So but we didn't have a pavilion, mainly because that year we finished the building, this building.
This one, yeah.
Yeah, and I still remember on opening night, it starts at 7, we got our TOP at 6:30 p.m.
Well, it was planned that way, right?
I was so tense, And,
My God, I can imagine.
And so anyway, What Future? Then we were focusing on the younger generation, the young designers, the students, and you even have programs for toddlers, for children.
Yeah.
Children below 12, can come in and experiment with building things, and then we do a kind of a crate after that. We invite people to come and participate. And it was held all basically in this premises. So it was kind of low-key, but I remember it's very fun. We had very positive feedback. thanks to my co-directors, Sri Saravanan and Zhou Wen-Tian, who are now both council members. And then the following year, 2016, after What Future, we used the theme Exhale. Yeah. So, because of the frenetic pace that our society is in, so we thought that actually we need some time to sit back and exhale and think about how far we've come, what happened next. Should we continue the same way, or there may be other things that we should look at that makes our life more interesting. And I remember, I think possibly the largest pavilion Archifest ever built, right in the middle of Raffles Place, 3 stories high. But the idea in the competition was for pavilion design is that everything must be 100% recyclable.
Yeah.
So and thanks to DPA who won the competition, everything is reused. I mean the construction fabric, the whole pavilion built out of those scaffolding.
Yeah.
Let me share with you a story. So I was at the pavilion. So basically, when I was the director of Archifest, I was as much as possible in all of the events. It was very important that the director, for me, it was important that the director is at all events. The figure to represent
the ultimate ambassador of that
it was
year.
very important. So I was at the pavilion, and then I heard like, oh, a family wants to talk to the director. This family, Singapore family, comes to see me, and the dad was like, my son like doesn't know what is it, and so, oh, it's about architecture. It's the architecture festival. I said, oh, it's architecture festival. So what do you do? I started to explain what is the theme, design for life, what we advocate for. And what is the stand of SIA towards that, and that young boy was like, that's very interesting. I want to do that in my life. And I was like, really like that? Yeah, that seems very interesting. And so I was like, okay. So if you have any more questions, like you can contact us. And then eventually that young guy contacted me before going for NS.
Oh.
He was like, can I do just an internship at your office? I want to see. So I said, yeah, sure. So then he spent with us like 2 months. Then he went to NS, and now he's at SUTD.
Nice.
Now he's graduating, because I saw him on the picture of Calvin. I'm like,
see, if I were a proper host, I would say, and he is right, but he is not.
and that was just amazing.
Yeah.
When I saw him on the picture last week, like he's graduating with Calvin, I'm like, what a journey! That's just amazing, you know. And he was maybe 15 years old at a time. So
Right.
that's why the pavilion and the public presence of Archifest is really important to spark this kind of design.
It gives you that, you can stumble literally into architecture in a space that is for all.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, to move to 2018.
It's very interesting because for me it's a totally different story. So like I was not a council member. I was an SIA member. I was sitting in the SMAP committee as a volunteer, and I sat there for like many years. Although I am not an architect and I don't run an architecture practice, but it was a way to contribute to the fraternity and the community. And before doing Archifest, I was participating actively to the Singapore Design Week, where we organized talks in my office. So I was already organizing some of these talks and events and so on. And then I received, I think maybe it's Chi Wong who might have like texted me or sent me an email saying like, Jan, we're looking for a new director. Would you like to pitch for it? I'm like, well, okay, pitching for it. Okay, sure, let's pitch for it. So I did pitch for becoming a director. Then I submitted a proposal, and then they invited me to talk about it. And they were like, okay. And it was maybe May or June for Archifest that was happening in September, October. So extremely short. And they were like, okay, yes, you have an interesting proposal, but like, are you ready to take on something that is losing money, to recover the loss, and to make profit, and to diversify the audience, and to multiply the number of attendees?
Ignore it, just doesn't matter. Yeah.
I'm just here for 6 months, and to hell with this place. You can rot for as much as I can.
Right.
But if they begin to participate and care for it, I think there's hope for future.
Absolutely.
That's what we did. Like, for me, like Archifest, and when we talk about architecture, can be quite intimidating for some people. I come from a background where I was not exposed to that. I come from a pretty poor family in France, in Paris suburbs, social housing and so on. So I didn't have access to that kind of knowledge when I was a kid. Even when I grew as a teenager, I didn't have access to that. And only when I entered architecture school in Paris, then I was like, oh, this is what architecture is about. And I do believe that SIA has this idea in bringing architecture to the masses in a simple manner. Of course, we also address our community, our colleagues and the profession, which is important equally, and in the academic environment it's also important. But Archifest is here to talk to everyone in a non-intimidating manner and to welcome all communities. And that was what we wanted to do with our edition. That's why we even call that design for life and not architecture for life. To desacralize a little bit the idea of architecture as like in the French definition, the synthesis of the art, the top of the pyramid. I've been educated in that manner in my school. Well, nowadays it's a bit different. And architecture is part of the built environment that encompasses beyond architects, but of course urban designers, planners, landscape architects, and interior designers. So it's all of this kind of community. And that's what we were hoping to do with our edition, and we successfully did it. And so there were a beautiful moment where, surprising moment when we did design for longevity, a talk that was free. The only paid talk was SIA conference.
Of course.
But all of the others were non-paid, were free. And this design for longevity, and we invited basically elderly coming on stage and sharing with us how they were perceiving their environment, their shared kitchen in their neighborhood. And those were beautiful moments where everyone was listening very carefully to the end users and the one that really matters in what we do. So those were beautiful moments where the end users were given the stage to share, which is how we can learn from that.
Wonderful.
I just want to chime in on that, on end user using the stage. I think Archifest is a very important event for the city. I think today it's a platform for voices to be heard. And the one that I did in 2014, we had this event called Why Architect? Actually by Catherine. And what we did was she got the owner to actually come out and talk about the process, on working with architects on their houses. And so I thought that was very meaningful because in fact the family actually came along, and the public was the one that said, oh, okay, this is what architects do, and this is what architecture is about, or what can you expect from the architect, and what are the pitfalls if you don't have architects.
Right.
So I thought it's a platform for voices, and now to hear it from end users is very meaningful. I think this tradition and culture and that platform should be kept, and even for future, and in whatever form it is, to allow for different voices to be heard. And we might be imagining things that may not be too correct, so to speak, so that that truth that is unspoken can be spoken.
That's great, and I sense that throughout the editions, I think in 2026 and beyond, it feels natural, almost commonplace, to have all these different constituents at the table. It was almost weird to have an architecture gathering only with architects, whereas, and it's interesting for all the millions of people watching this video to ponder that in context, because 10 years ago, or maybe 20 years ago, when Archifest first started in, around your edition 10 years ago, these were not as common. And you guys kind of pioneered throughout the years some of this inclusion in the conversation. And speaking of inclusivity, I think the notion of agency of your edition was quite spot on there.
Yeah, I think this cohort, did bring about, if I can characterize it as a kind of democratization of architecture. That is, it is of course still bound by professional limits, right? Because we have duties and ultimately liabilities. But then the users and the wider constituency, I think, ought to have a kind of literacy about design and architecture and what it means, because they cannot be a passive user of architecture. They're always in a space, they're always bound to complain about something. So I think to include them is the natural thing to do. But in a way, I think civil society demands it. When we mature as a body, as a population, then I think by the time we try to curate that inclusivity, we started to, in fact, break them down to almost every single group. So we started out as a kind of small research exercise to study what the different constituencies in architecture. So we then, in fact, found obligated to include a panel or an event just with, for example, construction workers. Right, just with janitors and the kind of the maintenance crew of architecture, right? Even domestic workers who are sometimes under certain duress in a household. They're basically, you know, the custodians, if you like, right? The real ones, not the owners, but the ones who care for buildings, keeping it in good order. So then we, of course, naturally found vulnerable communities within amongst us, but also we went towards the other spectrum, you know, children and architecture, elderly. I remember DEC, the photography gallery that was around Princept, collaborations that happened quite spontaneously. We had sponsors who would pay for the prints, and we then invited someone, a photographer, in this case John Klang from New York, Singaporean, to curate a photography show for different age groups, and then the age groups start to surface. Like, would elderly see a city differently? Like, what is their point of view when they document architecture and the city, the every sort of walk of life? So from that to obvious ones like Marina Bay Sands was already built, so there was one panel by King Soon, and we had Ka Seng, who was Kawi from NUS, who also wrote a book about casinos, to then talk about monumentality of architecture. So it really cuts across just about every conceivable part, right? We also had music and the city. So it then became expanded. So it's the expanded feel of what architecture in a way promises, because it is host to all these activities that we can imagine. So I think we can only do it better given this consciousness, and to find this not a divide, but this sort of synergy between the profession, which has to stay very professional and very well delineated, and the community that is the larger sort of, you know, proposition.
I think Archifest through the past 20 years, including this year, that is the conversion, has touched on practically everything.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, everything, you know. It's interesting to see how it evolved, but that doesn't stop us from thinking more, right, and exploring more. I'm not too sure whether is it topics that is sensitive or not, but rather, or trying to avoid. And I think Archifest has been brave enough to touch on certain topics that has been a little bit sensitive. Yeah.
Bit of a hot button topic here and there.
Yeah, and it touched on like even conflict with some government, you know, the Malaysian one. I can't remember the name. Yeah. and I thought that was very interesting to see how things are done elsewhere, having a larger view than just Singapore.
Right.
That really opens up your mind. So I do think, this is one way to look at it. And if there be anything, probably another way to look at I won't say, I do not know whether it's a theme or topic, but topics that can be a little bit more uncomfortable. For example, death, right? Death in the city, right? Not new. These topics are not new, or even powers, right? So I know these are being touched on somewhat, in a certain way,
engaged in some form of
but
fashion.
not direct.
Yeah.
It's a little bit subtle. But when you talk about powers, immediately in Singapore, it's like, okay, certain place you don't want to touch.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And those are, nonetheless, though difficult conversation, but I think Archifest can bring it up in a certain way. And to have this conversation is important, rather than to avoid it. To have this difficult
I
conversation.
totally agree with you, because it's something that we try to do, that we decided to do, to advocate for design for the 99% and not for the 1%.
Right.
And that we know that we did face some difficulties when we developed our Archifest, and I received many comments from the organizers as well that we need to attract people. It's important to have like big stars coming into the picture, to have as many participants as possible, and we were and thanks to Chi Wong again to support me in that, and to say we are in Singapore, we are championing our region, it should be focusing on our region. We have a strong identity, we need to bring back this so-called critical regionalism that we tend to forget sometimes, because we are a global country, and yes, we do play a role on the international scale beyond our region,
Yep.
but we shall never forget where we are from, and that we have something to say about our global south, our tropical region, and even more now, equatorial region.
Yeah.
Because the climate is changing extremely fast, and so I hope that Archifest can keep that identity of being the champion of our region, and to talk about the consequences of that climate change on our communities, especially the vulnerable one. We are blessed enough in Singapore regarding other natural disasters and so on that our neighbors are facing. So what can we do as a community of in our ASEAN region to bring this again to the forefront, and to utilize Archifest as a platform to showcase that to the world, to invite our friends from our region. And this year Archifest, there is a fantastic platform as a forum with younger architects from the region, which is so important to do that. But sometimes to forget about the stars, to forget about the spectacular, and to focus on what makes us citizens of a nation, and what and the users of a space, especially when we deal with challenges, difficulties on a daily basis, social challenges as well, and that our fabric, be it urban fabric or social fabric, is trying to resolve. And we should give the spotlight to that. It's always super cool to see the most biggest building being built, whatever, but sometimes just a simple HDB can change the life of so many people, and we should give the credit to that.
Yeah.
So that's I hope that Archifest will continue in that direction, to give the voice. We're talking about that, giving voices to the ones that are usually not giving such platform.
I think it's very forward-looking to look at gaps and opportunities and missed opportunities. I really appreciate both Patrick and Jan's views, because I think speaking about power in architecture, and then you quickly follow up with the 99%. I think inadvertently, I think architects we are very self-conscious. We are aware that we are serving people with power, not to mention money. But festivals like this will have the courage to and the kind of latitude to bring that about. Have tough conversations, and yet fair and understanding the power structures that exist with us. Not to upend it, but to coexist with it. Yeah. So
scrutinize it, to look at it.
That's
in
right.
a,
That's right.
I guess
That's
very
right.
benevolent
That's
manner.
right.
And acknowledging, I think, its diversity, because as you mentioned, all of those parameters, once you put them together, not every architect is everything to everyone. And finding yourself as much as understanding where are your own boundaries and your own happy playground, and where other people are better suited. Because I'm looking at the four of you, and then again I'm looking at the expanded pantheon. Very, very different. There isn't a specific template that SIA has downstairs and kind of secretly Montessori style is trying to fit people into, because each of you is different. Each Archifest is different. And I guess the last question I will subject you to today, which I'm sure that future festival directors watching will be keen to hear your thoughts on, is what would you advise or hope for future festival directors who get the call or asked to either pitch or get pitched at by SIA? One bit of advice for them, or future aspiring architects who might want to, or non-architects who might want to contribute to an architecture festival.
Inhale.
Inhale. Okay, that's good. Deep breath. Jump next, whoever. There's no order.
Just have fun.
Have fun.
That's it. Just enjoy. Like, honestly, as much as it was like quite challenging, we had fun.
Yeah.
And that was the most important thing. We enjoy what we are doing, and when you are the festival director, you will have fun. Definitely, you will have fun.
I would say, I think the issues that we face in the profession and the society as a whole are serious. But the festival director cannot take himself too seriously.
Yes.
Because you are out there to appeal to the general public who have a whole plethora of reactions to what you want to bring forward.
Yep.
Yeah, and I would just say, enjoy it. Don't take it too seriously. Don't take yourself too seriously.
Yes. That's a great piece of advice for architects in general. Take your profession seriously, but don't take yourself that.
Yes.
Yeah, I would echo what has been said. I think the festival itself is really what is fun about it. And if it, of course, it has duties like learning or the projection of the profession out to the public realm, but we also can make it more festival-like. We can really have all kinds of activities. I think it will be the bridge, and it really a kind of the kind of hot pot of bringing everything under the sun. I think of using all the you of course you mentioned social media and whether something as serious as architecture can be discussed, and it surely can, right? We have to make it appealing, and through that I think you win people over. So I think a festival is really the kind of right venue for that. So the more we can bring about the festivities, tap into everyone who wants to party in the city. To make it happen.
That's great. And you speaking about not taking yourself seriously, in 2021 we had an event called Archifest as well, which was people with dogs, bring them out to a cafe and enjoying the city, because we realized that people who have dogs, actually they experience the city really differently. And you should know better than everyone, because you're a lover of dogs, and wonderful ones. So sometimes people are like, is this still an architecture festival, or is opening your amusement park? And I thought, don't worry, it's fun.
Only dogs can tell us what they like about our work.
So Archifest, no longer anthropocentric, but life-centric, architecture for life. Look, I'm really grateful to all four of you for being such sports today and sharing so many amazing thoughts and opinions and memories and laughs. I have enjoyed all your editions as a visitor, sometimes as a contributor. I remember cooking for the opening of yours, my CMIO roles as well, and it was just an amazing many memories. Feed the city. And thank you all for joining us on ArchitectuREAL, a special edition celebrating 20 years of Archifest. The podcast is brought to you by the Singapore Institute of Architects. Please like the video and subscribe for more wonderful SIA material as we continue to explore the real life of architects and real thoughts of festival directors. Today I'm joined by Eunice Seng, architect, academic, and festival co-director of Archifest 2017. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Rasman. I'm trying to develop a theory on contingency in architecture, because architectural practice is very much based on contingent events.
Right.
No matter how we want to make an argument that, intention, process, realization, the fact is that it's never linear like this. So, okay, shall we start?
Yeah, well, you were telling me about when you got the call to do Archifest.
Yeah, because that was the 11th Archifest, and where was I? I was in Hong Kong. My partner's between Hong Kong and Shanghai. And so my first question was like, why us? We're not in town. And as far as I understand, the council at the time, or the committee that was deliberating this, felt that it was timely because they had finished 10th edition. And in a way, the 11 would be kind of something different to reflect on the 10th. And so I was in the middle of developing a, let's just say, both a research trajectory on the notion of agency and what agency really means. Now, of course, in 2026, agency it's on everyone's lips now.
Yeah.
But then the joke is that we were saying, what's an agency, building agency? Is that advertising agency?
Or we have so many agencies in Singapore that have circulars and they kind of dictate how architecture is being practiced.
And actually, if you talk about agency, this was 9 years ago. We're talking about modeling agency, advertising agency.
Right.
We're not talking about agency necessarily as kind of, empowerment. And so even writing a statement for that require setting aside some preconceptions about that. So the committee was persuasive, and we thought that this was really for us a national service.
Great.
Genuinely, I thought it was national service.
Thank you for your service. It was a great addition.
I still feel it that way. But it was really unboxing the festival. And while the festival always has the various components of like tours and workshops and all the variety of public outreach, we just magnify it by multifold. And so in that sense, it was really a kind of unboxing, unpacking festival.
And that's a great segue for me to ask around what did you feel that people took away from it? Because obviously you had your intention, and that's another word that is on everyone's lips in 2026. And you probably had your own goals as a team as to what people would take away. And I'm curious, I'm sure you've had many conversations with people who either attended or ended up like myself having to do it years later. Do you feel like they understood or they took away the things that you hoped they would? Or on the flip side, was there something that surprised you, an unintended takeaway that suddenly you realized that you created the right conditions for that discovery to emerge?
I suspect that there were some obvious take-home that were very instantaneous at the event itself. And you can see just in people's eyes and how they responded to it. For example, an event that was done with Jacqueline and Vic on their design for the Rainbow School.
Right.
And the event was called Chasing Rainbow, and it was basically inviting the public, many of them were children and students, to collaborate on a design wall mural for the school, which will permanently be installed at the school. And so this is very much the architect inviting the public to complete the last act for the school. And then we rounded it off with a conversation panel. I think the take-home was quite apparent. The school got the work. And then for those of us who do it, it was a very meaningful reflection of how we can participate. So I think each of these events, to various degrees, had its, really tangible take-home. I think what was more challenging was some of the events that we introduced that I suspect was the first and last time, and hopefully not for long. So another one that was very encouraging was the conversations on women and its contribution in the to the profession.
I remember being in the audience for them.
You were in the audience, and I remember there was Ping Bing
Yep.
in
Ping
it.
Bing and Josh and Kuhn might have been
Ping Bing, Josh, and Kuhn
were at the table.
Yeah, because they collaborate with other women architects
Yeah.
in their practice or partnership. You know, they were partners.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that as an event, I don't think the subsequent festival did have a similar event. However, what's encouraging to see is there are other conversations, especially in recent years, that really looks at, you know, gender concerns in the profession. So I wouldn't claim that that was because of that, but I would say that it's good to, you know, it's good to do it and pick on such necessary conversation points. So it's the same for the ones that deal with maintenance of our buildings, as well as the construction labor that comes with our building, even though that does not directly contribute to necessarily what the Institute is building, but indirectly it's really important.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the building agency iteration. You know, so I think the take home is going to be, you know, we'll see in many multiple scales and time scales. So for me, I took home a lot out of it because it generated, even now in the academic setting, it set the tone for how I shape up the next generation's program.
So really thinking about your festival, and you spoke about it before, the fact that you came in as a team on the 11th edition. So there's already a good decade of, I guess, events that have become part of the lore of the festival, and they happen these days as well. The Architours and the conference and many other wonderful things. But also things like you said that at that point it felt like they might just be the one-off, that you hope they won't be the one-off. So, candid opinion, did you ever feel a little bit guardrailed in by that weight of the 20 years? Or did you feel you had enough room to explore, to change things?
Actually, no. I was very grateful to the Institute at the time, who really gave us the blessings mostly. And the fact that there are very substantial work that was already done in the first 10 years to that prioritize the profession and the Institute members and so on, gave us sufficient confidence, I would say, to go on that particular trajectory of opening it up. We did, knowing that that it comes with risk.
Yeah.
So, one very tangible, immediate risk was, and this may sound trivial, but it's significant, was how we opened the festival with a big feast. And you were at the feast.
I did cook the whole day prior to that.
Well, so of course, in our very sort of celebratory mode, someone asked, well, did you get the food license? Right. And then we suddenly realized, let's make sure we get the food license. And so, so here we have trying to be big-hearted and, you know, invite the public to feast. Architects cook for the public. We thought it's a fantastic idea. We had an amazing location outside the projector.
Yeah. And
then we dealt with that towards the end, and we're very grateful DP stepped in to sort of hold it together because they had they are legit. Yeah. And so this is the kind of moments I thought when, you know, if it comes to shove, the architects, we step in to support each other.
The community, the village comes together and makes sure it works out.
And so for us, this is agency building. You know,
that was the example. It's like, hey guys, I have this issue, and everyone kind of goes like, okay, how do we solve it? How do we make it go away?
And someone step in, and so this is what we count on. You know, the last 10 years and the community.
Yeah.
So that we can do the other community building, because there's so many communities of multiple scale. The profession is a community, and we have to figure out. Actually, we have a lot of superpowers that we are not so aware of.
So if there was something that you hoped you handed forward to other festival directors and kind of future generations of Archifest custodians, what would be some of those values?
The main one I would say is collaboration. what we try to do and also learn in many ways during and before and after is architecture is an intensely collaborative practice. And by that, I don't mean just architects collaborating with each other. It's just the whole remit of collaborators, all the way from professional collaborators to even how to see the client as a collaborator.
Okay.
And I just realized that, can you imagine if we all do that? We will be so much better at in the site, at the construction site.
Right.
Just because, then we become very adaptable of knowing how to deal with different.
It's the situational awareness, right?
Exactly. That's why I argue for situated competency, because the same set of competency in a very specific situation calls for adaptation. Yeah. So, in the same way, I would. One of the most influential lecturers for me was an incredibly, Liz, if you're listening to this, don't be offended. But it was Elizabeth Diller's 6 ways of presenting her project.
Right.
And this was for the Lincoln Center. And she basically went through how she would present it to students, how she would present it to the city, how she would present it to only technician consultants.
Right.
And at a certain point, I heard people snoring in the audience because it was such a boring lecture. But it was very influential for my thinking about, and this was before the festival. And I thought, this is what we need to learn. Like in collaboration, there are people that we never thought was important to even show up in monographs. But they actually are very significant. Think about it, like certain consultants that are just technical consultants.
Right.
But there's no just.
No, everyone impacts any project they touch.
So that's my long way to answer your long question.
But if I were to ask, after having reflected on that over the past 40 minutes or so with me, I'm really curious to find out if you were, and I'm not asking you to remember the tagline or the kind of press release paragraph, but to kind of, all these years later, if you were to kind of summarize what building agency was about then and perhaps what it is about now for you, how would you summarize that in maybe a simple sentence?
Actually, I haven't changed my position on that. And also I have great collaborators in Kun and Darren. It still boils down to collaboration and inclusion, in terms of how these are catchwords that are on everyone's lips these days, but I would say just act on it. I would want to say very little, but really act on it. And by acting on it, it also means, and I've been thinking of wanting to bring this up in our conversation, so I'm going to do that now. I think we also need to figure out what the architects, we should figure out what architects should also not build.
Right.
Because I think we focus a lot on celebrating what we have done and so on. I would be very interested to look at what we have not done and should still not do.
Right.
So, for example, in certain parts of the world, in Europe in particular, there's a huge pullback before the current, situation that is happening in the world now with the war and so on. But before that, there's already a huge pullback on how much architects should build or participate in building, and how much should we kind of like look at, if not built, what else needs to be done.
Right.
And I think the festival needs to deal with that as well. Speaking of the future.
That's a great takeaway. Thank you for spending your time with me today. It's been great to speak to Eunice about her edition of Archifest. So thank you for tuning in to ArchitectuREAL.